right now, and we're trying something a little different. I normally try and do a Monday morning live streaming broadcast for a variety of different platforms, usually a Periscope or something like that. And I've been messing around a little with the Restream, the Restream.io, and I'm gonna try and do this on a couple different platforms all at the same time, and we'll see if we can make this work between Periscope, between Twitch, and between YouTube. And rather than just making this a test video, I wanted to do my normal stream. We've got a bunch of tech news to kick the week off with, some really interesting stuff that's happened over the last couple days. And one of the things that I think is kind of fun is the Oscars were last night. I don't know if how many of you know, I came out of film and TV production, doing a ton of voiceover casting, stuff like that. Oh, and I got some people coming in from the Periscope, from Ronald Collins, Alex Tuckney, Big Dog in the YouTube chat. What's up, guys? So thank you so much for checking out this live stream, and hopefully this goes well and it doesn't completely blow up in my face. But yes, Oscars last night. I was super stoked for Jordan Peele winning an Academy Award for Best Screenplay, and he's the first African American writer to do that. Get Out was one of my favorite films of last year, so I was really stoked to see it get some love there. Definitely excited about The Shape of Water. So that's pretty cool too. Definitely stoked that Shape of Water got Ed Modlin. Hey, what's up in the Periscope chat? Ed, you won the microphone. I hosted a contest on my Patreon giving away this microphone right here. And Ed, as soon as you reply to my email, bud, I will put this in the mail for you. So I'm glad you joined this live stream. See, this is the beauty of live broadcasting, bringing people together and shouting people out. From Brian Gomez, hello Hatman. From Velinga, my phone exploded with messages of you going live on Periscope, Twitter, and YouTube all together. Well done. I'm trying a scorched earth policy for my new live streams and broadcasts. I'll be pissing off quite a bit of people. What's your phone? The camera is nice. I'll get into some tech chat about what we're setting up here, but I did want to point out a couple things that I thought were a little sad about last night's Oscars broadcast. If you can see, I am wearing my Adam West Batman shirt, giving you guys some good nipple shot right there. He was totally snubbed from the in memoriam. You know, every Oscars broadcast, they do. These are the people that we lost in the world of Hollywood and production, and you know, these are the actors and producers and directors that passed over the course of the year, and he was not featured. You know, the Batman that I first saw live on screen. You know, voice actor extraordinaire, an incredible voice actor who did work on Family Guy and a number of other products. Just in a, and my wife actually got to work with him. My wife worked at the talent agency that used to rep Mr. Adam West. And so she used to talk to him on the phone, and just like, you know, she would come home with stories like, I got to talk to Adam today. And apparently he's super charming, just the nicest, kindest, most gracious gentleman that she had ever had the joy of working with. And it just really sad that he wasn't given even just the little pop-up, that he didn't make the cut for the Oscars broadcast last night. It was just really, really sad. So that's one of those things that's an opportunity for us to celebrate the work of an individual whom I very much respected and was a huge part of my childhood. And you know, if you guys want to spread the word on the gospel that is Adam West, then that's something that I think, you know, many people would be appreciative of. So the other thing that was actually kind of cool about last night's Oscar broadcast was there was a commercial for the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures. And apparently this is going to be an actual museum. I think it's open now. I need to look it up. The commercial it made an impact because of the source material, but not enough of an impact for me to go and look up more information on it. But last night during the Oscars, if you were paying attention, they ran a commercial. I can actually pull it up here. Let's see if this will work. This is a beautiful commercial for the Overlook Hotel. This is a hotel in Colorado. It's got a really fun retro vibe. It's got a topiary maze. It's got this really sort of chic, retro kind of decor, and you can see they've got a staff that's really into making sure that the hotel stays pristine, and it just it's just like a really, really sharp commercial for a hotel. Now, if you're into horror films, the Overlook Hotel is, of course, from The Shining, and I would definitely recommend checking out The Spot from the academymuseum.org, because it's just so well done. They nailed the look, the vibe, the feel. Everything looks like it came straight out of The Shining, and there's a number that you can call to make a reservation at the end of the commercial. So I called that number, and I recorded the audio. And if you catch my Twitter feed, let me just bump the mic a bunch of times. If you catch my Twitter feed, there is a link to an archive.org link. Hey, what's up, Demir? Oh, and Ronald Collins, what's up, man? If you go to my Twitter, click on the link archive.org. It'll take you to my recording of the voicemail, and it's great because it's like a 1970s on hold message, for all of the amenities of this world-class accommodations, and it's hilarious. So whoever put that campaign together, I'm assuming it was Wyden Kennedy, because they retweeted my tweet. So I think they might have had a little something to do with the production on that. I've got Yukimi Kazari. I've got Richard Ratner in the live chat. Got some fun guys. Gansy Tech Nerd missed the Oscars. Totally gonna find a rerun online or a recorded version. I mean, like, if the show's your thing, I still really get into the technical awards. I came out of audio and voice recording and casting and stuff like that. So my background, I love seeing what movies won for things like costume design and sound mixing and sound editing and writing. I don't quite get as much into the actors anymore. The whole red carpet, fancy ball gown, fancy tux. Oh my gosh, I can't believe she wore that. And let's have a speech out there. I'm just I don't know. I'm not quite into that kind of celebration of entertainment as I used to be. In fact, what I should probably start doing is looking more at the secondary technical awards, which are completely separate from the main broadcast, and seeing which of my favorite films won that one too. Kyle Ruggles, you're not invisible. And Armando G, Ayo Juan, what's good? What's good is we're going to finally talk about some other tech stuff. And we're going to Mark Z, Oscars never interested me. I watch mostly YouTube and Netflix. So YouTube and Netflix especially, I'll be curious to see when will we find a Netflix film which is nominated for any kind of Academy Award. If it's writing, if it's, a technical art, if it's production design. I mean, the production design that Netflix invests in for their original content is insane. So especially for Emmys and for Oscars, I'll be really curious to see, is that in the next year or is that in the next 5 years? Will the industry have like this stigma that Netflix is just the streaming outlet and that they don't really deserve the same kind of recognition that traditional theatrical release films get? That I think is going to be a really tough transition for the industry to follow. But yeah, so let's get into some news. And especially this was sort of at the end of the week, over the weekend, lots of Google and YouTube drama. I don't want to get too into it, but we're seeing channels demonetized, remonetized. I mean, for example, Alex Jones is waging a one-man war against the deep state and the liberal media for censoring conservatives online, and the InfoWars YouTube channel is going to be completely removed from YouTube, even though that never happened, and he basically just used that to promote a new YouTube channel that he created about talking about YouTube censorship, I guess. I don't know. I can't figure Alex Jones out. But the one that I think is going to be, well, and obviously most of everything that he said regarding the situation between YouTube and his own channel was basically not true, and a lot of people complaining about free speech. Well, if you're complaining about free speech, you have to understand that you're on someone else's platform and you signed the terms of service, which that organization can change the terms of service whenever they want. This is not a free speech argument. This is just a I didn't read the fine print argument. But the one that I think is going to piss off a lot of people, and this was super quiet, I think they picked the right timing, the right strategy to release this information, Well, wouldn't you know it? YouTube is re-enabling advertisements on Logan Paul's videos following his suspension. He's totally learned his lesson, guys. He's totally figured out what he did that was wrong. He's not going to do it again. He promises everything's going to be cool. And even though, like, more of this is coming from his merch sales, I would imagine, than just straight up ads featured on his service, it's all gonna be good, guys. It's all gonna be so good. It's all right. Yeah, I mean, like, whatever sort of douchebaggy shenanigans that he wants to promote, we can make sure that advertisers can reach that amazing demographic of tweeners who have all kinds of disposable income completely on their own, not from their parents at all. And I'm sure that's really going to be a great way to make sure that the messaging gets out there and that advertisers really get their bang for buck. And it's in no way, shape, or form going to come back on smaller YouTube channels who are having problems monetizing their videos and making sure that their ad revenue continues to plummet as advertisers flee from YouTube because of channels like Logan Paul and InfoWars. This is such a frustrating turn of events because, again, I think YouTube is looking at numbers. They want to be able to say, hey, look, we've got channels that reach tens of millions of people in a single broadcast, and that's awesome. That's tentpole. That's how you get eyeballs on the service in the first place. But then they completely sacrifice the long tail base of viewers on the back end. So, if you have a smaller YouTube channel, let's say you haven't even finished your monetization, it's 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of view time. I might have those numbers wrong. You are providing a benefit with every single view that you get for YouTube. You have benefited that platform, right? Because YouTube wouldn't have had that view, that one extra click, that extra 30 seconds of view time or 2 minutes of view time if your product hadn't been on their platform. So I feel even while you're trying to generate the numbers for your monetization, that's still worth something. Your time and your effort and your energy and production is still worth something for improving YouTube's platform. So, someone like a Logan Paul looks amazing from a number standpoint. And then a ton of advertisers are going to say, well, what videos were my ads played on? And they're going to say, well, I don't want Logan Paul. So as much as they can be selective, they're going to be selective. But after a point, that's just too much maintenance. Think about if you had to manually, let's say you're a business and you paid for ads on YouTube, and you had to manually go through and say, well, I don't want Logan Paul, I don't want PewDiePie, I want to reach people in this demographic, and I don't want click-through ads from feeding from these types of videos or this type of channel, and you had to do all that yourself manually. Instead, the joy of YouTube was your ad money went into a big bucket, and then YouTube spread that bucket around, and everything was hands off, everything was super easy, super groovy, super cool. But with that kind of a problem, with that kind of a situation, I think advertisers are more apt to say, look, this is more trouble than it's worth. It's more hassle than it's worth. We can go back to any other type of traditional advertising model. We can use some other service than AdSense. I think this completely skews the monetization and how ads are fixed for these types of platforms. So it's a disappointing turn of events, and I was really hoping that YouTube would take a harder stance on these types of issues. Just rolling over, it's been a couple weeks since they pulled ads on Logan Paul's channel, and I understand they have to go through the process, what videos get strikes, but I find that Logan Paul has a much wider leeway. He gets way more leash than I ever will with. As a fun little turn of events, I also did just recently break 60,000 subscribers on YouTube, so that is neat. It means nothing. Subscriber count means zero. If I look at my metrics, I think the last time I pulled up my YouTube metrics, I'm averaging about 3% of all of my video views come from subscribers. And I know for a fact that people who have clicked the bell icon on my videos don't always get notified. So for whatever reason, I think it was back when I was talking about net neutrality. I got put on a list that I'm a controversial political blogger, I guess. because every single one of my videos gets demonetized. The recent stream I did on the headphone jack got demonetized. The recent podcast that we did for the Geek Book Club, we reviewed the book Altered Carbon by Richard Morgan, which has just recently become a Netflix original series. Where can you call it an original series if it's an adaptation? I don't know. Anyway, when we reviewed that, we did a podcast reviewing the actual book, and tomorrow we're gonna have Enabong Etta and Lou Rod from Board at Work on to talk about the adaptation. So we are going to be talking about the next Netflix show tomorrow night. But we broadcast the book review, and that book review was so salacious and so controversial that YouTube pulled monetization on that. And when you remonetize one of those videos, I doubt very much that you still show up in search metrics the same way that you would have had your video not been demonetized. So this is across the board just a major failure on all fronts. And this is I see Rachel in the live chat. I see Andrew Wallace on Periscope. From Adita and Nil, the truth is Logan risking brands has a ripple effect. Absolutely the truth. Absolutely the truth that one bad actor at the top, one high visibility bad player, absolutely decimates all of the channels underneath. When it comes to that money getting spread out and that adpocalypse revenue drying up, every time you bring back a Logan Paul, he needs to raise the bar on what keeps his audience watching his videos. He's never going to back off and chill out on his channel. He's only ever going to continue escalating his shenanigans because that's how you keep viewers on a channel like that until it eventually completely bottoms out. It's only going to be a matter of time, and unless he is really fine with his channel withering and not engaging in the same kind of growth, viewers, commentary, and relationship with his audience, especially trying to pump his own merch store, eventually we're going to see something that even tops some of his current shenanigans, and it's going to have that ripple effect going all the way through smaller channels. From Andrew Wallace, it was my Walking Dead comment. Yeah, Andrew made my Fat Produce, Andrew Wallace, my co-host on the Geek Book Club, made some weird joke about eating kids in the Altered Carbon review, which was kind of hilarious. We were getting a little punch drunk at the end, but I still seriously doubt that that's what demonetized our video. Where is the best place to comment while you are streaming across different services? So one of the cool things about Restream is that I should be able to see comments from YouTube and Periscope. I am also streaming this to Twitch, and I have no idea what Twitch is going to do with this, and I don't have any followers on Twitch, so I have no idea what's going to happen there. But I am seeing comments from both coming in, and wherever you come to watch me, then that should be fine. And I'm looking at other situations too, like Restream has a special pay option where you can also stream to Facebook at the same time, so I might enable that at some point too. But let's get on with he needs to get off YouTube. Yeah, he does. I hope you mean Logan Paul, and I hope you mean you're not talking about me, Rachel. If I need to get off YouTube, I hope 60,000 people will tell me to get off YouTube. Ed's looking for the email. I'll also hit you up with another comment, dude. Don't worry about it. I'll see if I used the email that you signed up for Patreon with, and that's where I sent your notification. You're gonna have a Twitch follower now. Haha. I am looking at trying to do some retro gaming on Twitch. I really want to get back to some of my favorite old classic real-time strategy games. Maybe some old first-person shooters. I'm trying to dig up a copy of Alien vs. Predator 2. Those are some of the things that I do just to kind of chill out and relax. I don't know that they always make for the best gaming content. Like, no one's looking for speedruns on AVP2, and I'd honestly never be able to compete with a good speedrunner, but I am trying to figure out how to just add extra commentary. Not like another podcast, but just like, this is what I do to chill out. You can join me, you can bugger off, we can have a chat. I'm just going to play the game regardless, and so that kind of stuff, that kind of stuff could be kind of cool. Expectations for the iPhone SE2. That's from Jan Strell on YouTube. I hope we see a 2:1 aspect ratio screen with no notch and then iPhone 8 internals. That would be awesome. Keep the same general form factor, and if you could keep the same backplate design, that would be epic. I know people would be pissed about not having wireless charging, but I still think the iPhone 5 design is the most attractive thing Apple has ever done. Mark Z, original Doom or Rise of the Triad? Oh, God. I have to go original Doom, but only for the warm feels. Back in the day, I was playing. So I didn't get to play Doom until a little later after it was released. My parents were super concerned about. We're super concerned about violence in gaming and stuff like that. And it's just funny because, gaming and tech has become a major part of my job. So I didn't get to play Doom right away, but my dad saw I was playing Jurassic Park for the Super Nintendo. The Jurassic Park Super Nintendo was a very odd entry into the Jurassic Park lineup of games because most Jurassic Park games are side scrollers. But the Super Nintendo was a split between a top-down Legend of Zelda view where you would go all over the park and explore and find dinosaur eggs and try not to get killed from dinosaurs. And then when you would go into a building, it would turn into a first-person shooter. So when he saw I was playing a Jurassic Park first-person shooter, taking out velociraptors and stuff, he took me into his lab where he had these monster computers for the time, and we got to LAN game together on the original Doom. And that's like, okay, well, if you're playing a game where you have to blow up dinosaurs and stuff, I think maybe you're ready for this Doom video game. And the first time I got to play was with my dad, so Doom just has this warm, soft spot in my heart for gaming. Like, it's kind of what kicked off my passion for more collaborative gaming experiences. Not that like Nintendo and Super Nintendo aren't fun couch co-op. You're in the same room looking at the same TV. You're fighting with your siblings over whose turn it is to have the controller next. But actually going into my dad's work lab where they had Doom sort of privately installed on these servers was kind of a big deal for me. So one of the things that I do want to mention, you guys are already talking about it. Wolfenstein, Doom, Tribes, Original Team Fortress, good times. You guys are already bringing it up. Let's flip over. There was news. I'm going to just sort of screen share here again real quick. That Xiaomi is set to enter the US market as early as this year. I have been so stinking impressed with Xiaomi's design aesthetic over the last 2 generations of phones. I'm putting them up there in a similar way with phones like the Mate series from Huawei, some of the work that's been done on the Honor brand. I am really excited about a competitor who, there's obviously Xiaomi and Huawei. I don't think anyone would be too upset if we were to accuse them of some iPhone inspiration for their designs, especially looking at what we might get for the next P series Huawei. Looks like it's cribbed directly from the iPhone 10, which I think could be a tragic mistake for their fashion line. But then you look at the Mate, and the Mate is a beast, the Mate is a baller, and hopefully they keep those design elements separate from the 2 phones. But when you look at what Xiaomi's been doing, especially on the Mi Mix phones, that corner notch, instead of having a webcam cutting into the center of your screen, really smart design elements, design accents. And I think they're a company that has the resources, to properly walk into North America and shake up some competition, especially if they can fight on sort of a price to performance ratio. If they can play the OnePlus game, I think Xiaomi could probably play the OnePlus game better than Oppo can. It's just, will they take the time? Because Oppo is now looking at, not Oppo, OnePlus is now looking at their 6th gen of devices. 6 iterations in the market is a long time to develop some kind of brand identity and consumer relationship. So Xiaomi would be starting from scratch, but I think they could find a way to do some really cool stuff in shaking up this market. I feel like we're not going to get tons of competition from HTC, from Motorola. LG is going to be quiet until the second half of this year, and that's not a great place to be. I am trying to get my hands on my own personal Galaxy S9, so we'll see how that goes. But honestly, I'm kind of looking at other tech opportunities to talk about things on my various channels rather than just spending all of my time reviewing phones. One of the reasons why I left full-time employment at Pocket now, and I'm only now sort of a part-time contributor, is I wanted to sort of spread out a bit. I want to talk more about gaming hardware. I want to talk more about PC building. I want to talk more about production gear. You know, like how can you take your vlogs up to the next step? How can you improve your audio recording? How can you really clean up the look and feel of your videos? Case in point, I got a question earlier on. And I'm so sorry with the live chat going with 2 different services, and you guys are throwing me some great conversation here. Someone asked what phone I'm using to stream, and I'm not. So I'm streaming on Periscope, YouTube, and Twitch using my Panasonic G85, which is connected to a UTAP HDMI to USB converter box, and my microphone is connected to a Focusrite 6i6. And then the Restream application broadcasts that one feed to all of my various channels. So that's what I'm doing to make Periscope look a little bit better, look a little bit nicer. At the same time, YouTube, this is my normal setup for a YouTube stream, for a Twitch stream, all that fun stuff. So that's how I'm kind of tying all these together. I want to be able to share those types of experiences as I learn about them and as I figure out how to use them better. Like, you know, I still need to figure out my way around OBS. Like, I'm so way behind on stuff like that. It's not funny. Can we get a vlog post showing your setup? So I am definitely planning on some content like that. Tomorrow, I'm actually going to be heading out to the Peterson with TK Bay. It's this amazing car museum in Los Angeles, and we're taking just competing vlogging rigs. And we're going to shoot some video and maybe produce like dueling vlogs, maybe one for his channel, maybe one for mine, and just talk about what were our experiences trying to capture high quality video, do it all like on the rails, on the run production, run and gun production. And I've really been getting into the hashtag Mojo lifestyle. So Mojo stands for mobile journalism. And what can you do in the field to fully produce a piece of video? And our capabilities on mobile devices, on phones, they're getting surprisingly formidable. So that's some of the stuff that I want to do outside of just like, well, we benchmarked this phone and it feels good in the hand. Do I need to do my impersonation of a phone reviewer again? Like it feels pretty good. Like the corners are rounded, so that's good. And like it seems like it was designed for some sort of primate grip with at least like a thumb and 3 fingers. Like if you have a thumb and 3 fingers, like it'll feel good. We learned our lessons from previous phones where we no longer make phones out of razor blades and rusted rebar because that doesn't feel good in your hand. So this feels good in your hand. So that's good. And so everything feels good and that's great. You guys don't need that. You don't need me to supply that. You don't need me to read the specs off the side of the box. You guys have this. In fact, whenever I start producing content like that, I run into people, this is how you all keep me honest. I run into people in my comments that typically know more about the individual gadget that I'm reviewing than I do. And that's really, I think, one of the great values of being a solo player and a solo commentator on all this, because the potato and the yam, link 057, I will always way out review a vegetable than anyone else will. My yam review is epic, especially when I did my scratch, bend, and burn tests. Some very surprising results on the yam. You should definitely check that out. Gansy Tech Nerd, did you get the Echo Box Explorer from Michael Fisher? I haven't gotten that yet. I reached out to them. I actually, you know what I think I'll do is I'll reach out to Michael and see if he wouldn't mind just introducing me. Their PR didn't really seem interested in talking to me at all. That's also one of the things, like, if there's any potential for someone to have a critical review of your product, like me, there's not a huge incentive to send me one of those products, and it's not something that I can just afford to front on my own, especially as right now I'm still digging the crap out of my little Fio, my Fio X5. I freaking love this thing. As a standalone media player experience, it's flippin' rad, and I like it. So personally, I don't have a budget set aside to keep buying competing media players or music players because I already have a solution that works really well for me. And so if the company doesn't want to shoot me a loaner just so I can play with it for a couple days and get a sense of what it's like to use, then it's probably not going to be something I'm gonna review. Have you ever tried the Cinema 4K app for Android? Danny D, I have. Cinema 4K is my favorite standalone video app. It's just right now I'm shooting a ton of stuff on the LG V30, and I just like the built-in app on the V30 better. It's just more consistent, it's more stable, and it's directly built into the phone in a way that I think is easier to use. So especially like when I'm trying to use something like my Osmo, the DJI gimbal that I reviewed recently, there's no point in using DJI's app for Android right now. It's terrible. And it's like 3 generations behind their iOS app. And if you have a phone like the V30, which is this monster powerhouse mobile production setup, you are limited to 1080p video recording. So why do that? That's no good at all. Please answer more questions from YouTube chat. No. Chad Christian, what's up, man? Thanks for tuning in, Chad Christian on the Periscope. Okay, a couple other stories that I did want to get to. Let me get rid of Logan Paul. We can say goodbye to that. Xiaomi, definitely some cool stuff. You guys brought up Xiaomi before I could even get to it. I really hope we see Xiaomi in North America. I don't know. Drop me some comments down below, but there are so many phones that I would love to be playing with more. It's just, the North American market right now is just this sort of dead experience between Samsung and Apple. That's like 90% of phone sales in North America right now is just Samsung and Apple. And, we could shake things up a bit more. Android support for third-party camera apps is terrible. The available APIs are a pain in the ass, from Renato Laporte. I think that would definitely explain some of the issues we've seen in getting some other things going. One other point about Xiaomi. Let's see what happens when Xiaomi tries to make a play in North America. Let's see if law enforcement agencies tag Xiaomi as a potential security threat. The FBI, the CIA, the NSA didn't seem particularly bothered by some of the problems that OnePlus was having with some of their products. They didn't seem particularly upset by Lenovo when Lenovo had certain apps on their laptops that would, sort of inelegantly handle user data. But all of a sudden, they suddenly care about companies like ZTE and Huawei, who, wouldn't you know it, also make tons of networking equipment. So let's see if Xiaomi finds some kind of consumer pathway to North America. Let's say they start retail channel sales in the United States. Well, let's see if law enforcement is concerned about our user data on that platform. So, give me a $200 Pixel XL phone killer from Xiaomi. Arian Gomez. And then Andrew Wallace, do you think political pressure will hinder Xiaomi in the USA? I just sort of vomited out my ideas on that. Question, why don't manufacturers use clean stock builds of Android, from Link57? That's a question I've definitely been struggling with lately. I think there is some notion that a manufacturer can create lock-in and consumer loyalty by customizing the interface, making it difficult for someone to transition off. So, imagine your very first phone was an Asus, okay? I don't know how familiar you guys might be with Zenphones, but they have a pretty tailored UI. Very, very similar to like Huawei with EMUI, where they finally got over just making an iPhone clone, and it is more Android-like, but it is very customized. The layout's very customized. The theme and the graphics are very customized. If you used that phone for a full 2 years and then someone put a Samsung in your hands, there would be just this minor disconcerting learning curve in relearning how to do everything on your phone. So I do think there is a psychological trick at play where if you can get a customer to use your phone for any length of time, when they become familiar with that UI, they aren't going to want to swap. But then I also think that there are other things too, like how you build apps and services for that. You can plug it directly into the ROM. You can customize what you want to feature in that device. I think Huawei is a good and a bad example of that all at the same time. The underpinnings for EMUI are really cool. Their garbage collection, their allocation of resources, their device management software is really good. And I think Google has been drawing more from companies like Huawei for future builds of Android, how background processes are managed, how garbage is dumped. We're seeing that now start to enter into Oreo 8.1 especially. So I do think there is still some benefit there, but it also comes with the user schmutz of layering junk on top of that software experience, that UI experience. And so that's I think we would all agree that's what's kind of problematic about this, is it also slows down the update progress. So I don't think that's going to change immediately, but I do think, especially once we start getting into some more of the conversation on Android 9, that it's going to become less and less desirable for companies to invest a ton of resources into replicating, especially with Google's most recent moves to kind of rein that in. So if you sell a device with Oreo pre-installed, well, you have to use Google's what is that, the update, Project Trouble, and you also have to. I forget what the threshold is, but there is some certain threshold where if you want a certain type of certification, you also have to use Google's background process management software, not your own. So we're going to see some more pushback, I think, with Android 9 from Google trying to rein in some of this stuff. If you have to already fight Google, you have to fight the company that makes Android to create software that just replicates things that Google already builds into Android, I think it's going to become less and less desirable to have really, really heavy, thick skins on top of a phone. And I think manufacturers like Sony already have a pretty good take on that. If you picked up an XZ1 or an XZ1C, you were one of the first to have a really clean build of Android, a Qualcomm 835, screaming performance. Like Sony has a ton of problems to work out in the market, but they did that stuff right. Chad Christensen. Side note, Juan's voice is a baby maker. Turn the lights down and grab your women some wine. I think this is probably too fast a chatter to be making some babies. If I need to slow down and maybe take this into some more ASMR territory, I could totally do that. Simply Your Device, Samsung equals pushback. They want to be their own OS. And they always have the leverage from Simply Your Device. They always have the leverage to go Tizen. Whether or not they will, I think is kind of an empty threat, but you're totally right. Right now, this is why I think Google is being so aggressive, is they're trying to bring Android back under their fold. And right now, most of the world equates Android with Galaxy. Like, those two are synonymous and interchangeable. And so I think Google definitely has an uphill battle in rectifying all of that. So speaking of Google News, I did want to bring this one up here. This came to me through Reddit, and this is something that I think we're all going to be quietly potentially excited for because of the current state of Android messaging. So let me throw this back on. Project Fi user gets chat features in his Android messages. Folks, this could be a really big deal. So let me just throw this on. It's just a screenshot of his Project Fi settings app. But right there at the top, chat features using data for messaging when available. This is the new backbone for text messaging. This is RCS, and right now, RCS is currently in a wasteland of companies fighting over what the standard for RCS will be. But eventually, once we hammer that out, we will have a true data carrier relationship backbone service for messaging. So everything that iMessage does, somewhat inelegantly and is a pain in the butt to disentangle yourself from, like say you get an iPhone, you really get into iMessage and you try to leave, and Apple kind of screws up all of your messaging platforms. RCS could be the real deal version of that. Moving forward, this could be epic because this is a humongous problem. This is one of the biggest problems, in my opinion, right now for consumers facing the Android platform, which is we don't have a one-stop shop, really clean, simple implementation messaging service. And when you look at iOS, you look at the combination of iMessage and FaceTime, it's so easy to get your family hooked on that. Those two apps alone, I think, almost completely justify the iOS platform experience. I don't think Apple has the same kind of ecosystem that they used to. I think we've never seen Apple more fractured in what products, what ports, what cables, what dongles are used on which of their products. But iMessage and FaceTime will keep people using iPhones till the end of time. And if we can finally get something like that for Android, and it communicates as seamlessly as how I feel Allo and Duo could work if they were also able to back up things like text messages, if they could compete properly against WhatsApp, if they could tie those accounts together, if I had really good web interfaces and I could do group video calls, all the things we had in Hangouts, but with the stability of those being individual services, huge. This could be huge. This is from Chad Christian. RCS is a game changer. Android SMS blows right now. I'm using Google Voice. I've had to stay on Google Voice, and thankfully the last update to Google Voice was good. So I've been sticking with that. We finally got MMS and picture mail. It's really ridiculous. And hopefully we could then, making this a data service, get rid of the stigma of being a different colored dot in iMessage, just because we'd finally have something legit. WhatsApp is better than iMessage from Akshay Vaishnav. I think WhatsApp has kind of become the default fallback. I don't really use it because I don't have a ton of people here in the United States. Because unfortunately, I can message through Twitter or Facebook or any other service, and then also back up with a text message for people that I'm really super close to. And Andrew Wallace, I just have Google Voice for all the terrible visual voicemail hilarity. The transcriptions never got any better. If there's any kind of interference on a voicemail, it's still pretty silly what it tries to translate voice to text. So anyway, be on the lookout, especially if you're using Project Fi. I lost my Project Fi SIM, so I just ordered a replacement. Hopefully it'll be here in a couple days, and when it is, I'm going to pop it into a phone and see if I too can benefit from the gloriousness which is data chatting messaging features on RCS. I'm still super nervous. I'm not going to combine my Google Voice and my Project Fi until I know that won't self-destruct. The master, Google is too fragmented. This is absolutely true, but hopefully a move like this could reunify these, because there's nothing really stopping them from taking the Messages app and building in Allo and Duo and making that one piece of software. And then just modules that you would update individually. We've been able to update modules in an app forever. Simply your device. Allo, what a shame. It could be awesome. Then again, why mess with Hangouts? It worked well. I agree. And this is why I don't talk people out of iPhones in my family anymore, is I worked really hard to get my family members using Hangouts way back in the day. I thought this was it. Google has all of their stuff under one house. Eventually it's going to be getting text and call support. And then Google pulled the rug out from under me. I don't trust Google until we get back to one proper, easy to use, one-stop shop. And I worry that Google doesn't have the attention or the focus to keep going. So let's say we get this amazing Messages app with RCS, and they add in video calling from Allo and Duo, and everything's looking clean, and it doesn't immediately become one of the most popular messaging platforms on the planet, then they'll bugger off and give us another solution in 2 years from then. I super creeped out by Google's inability to iterate and focus on a particular project. Ed Modlin, Google Voice, Project Fi, and Digits. Oh, man. So I really want to combine my Google Voice with my Project Fi, but I'm super nervous that whole thing will blow up, or I'll never be able to transfer my number back out of it, or there's going to be a problem. And I've had this phone number for so long, I don't want to give it up. There are two other little pieces of Google news that I did want to talk about from over the weekend. And this one, I don't think we're going to be too surprised. Thanks for saying my name, love from India. You're welcome, Akshay. From Chad Christensen, Google will just release 15 new SMS apps this year. It's funny because it's true. Google at GDC 2018 says a new product will be announced. What do you think, guys? What do you think Google will announce at a GDC? Because it's probably not going to be a Pixel. What are your thoughts? Someone shoot me some comments. Let me see what you think. I think the most immediate joke to make after my last story would be to say they're going to launch a new messaging service. So that'll probably be what they announce at GDC, is a new way to send messages and chat and maybe video call. And it'll be called something like, Google Video and Google something. I don't know. It's just kind of silly because we're pretty confident that they probably will make an RCS announcement with Project Fi or something. But standalone product, maybe what it is it's a special tablet that propped up on your kitchen counter, and it's got a screen, and you can talk to Google Assistant, and then it'll also show all of your messages from there. Let's see. From Renato Laporte, Google Writes. Okay, maybe something like that. Link 57, an Apple TV-like device with gaming on the side. I was just saying, maybe some kind of video screen Google Assistant. Mark Z, who have they bought recently? It's hilarious. Andrew Wallace, Logan Paul is a board member for YouTube? That can't be right. That can't. Google Video Assistant. I think that assistant needs a visible avatar. Chrome tablets, maybe. Hold on. I have to look this up real quick. Logan Paul YouTube board. Kyle Ruggles. Google's going to announce HAL 9000. No, I'm not seeing any news on this, Andrew. I hope you didn't get bamboozled. Ed Modlin, the reboot of Google Wave. I loved Google Wave. I was on board. I wanted the reinvention of email and live chat and collaborative workspaces. And I know so much of that is now properly built into Google Docs, but man, I loved Wave. Way back in the day, we did a movie view along for movies you may have missed, where we we didn't stream it, but we all synchronized The Hurt Locker, and we watched it with people all over the world. And Google Wave was how we were communicating with this huge chat. Oh man, I loved Wave. Okay, anyway. One of the things one of the other rumors pointing to GDC is maybe a standalone Daydream VR headset. There were rumors that we were going to see one at the end of last year. That didn't really come to fruition. Didn't we get like a refresh on the Daydream Cradle for phones? With all of the other companies out there, Windows Mixed Reality, Samsung, Oculus, and HTC, all working together to combine, or not to combine, but all working together to kind of arrive at the same idea of what a VR headset should resemble, then I think it's definitely possible that whatever internal plans Google had for a standalone headset could be materialized there. I would love to see this, especially with how well portable monitors are working with Android phones right now. Screen mirroring. When I plugged a little portable Asus monitor into my LG V30, and it instantly just started screen mirroring, and I could get my full layout, and I could see everything that was going on my phone display, and I was able to start like opening apps and editing and doing all this cool stuff. It would be so easy to just add a little bit of a data component to that and plug in some VR headsets and just go to town. And also not have your phone cooking in an enclosed container, which just sort of contains all of that heat right in front of your eyes. The first time I fired up Daydream, and after 10 minutes, the phone was uncomfortably hot to the touch, and I had sweat just pouring down my face. I didn't really feel that VR from a phone was going to be a good mainline solution. So if we can get some kind of standalone device, the phone can stay outside the cradle, can cool a little bit better, and we can just plug it in, or I guess wireless too, but I just don't think the phone would have enough bandwidth, and Wi-Fi would be kind of janky to use for a connection protocol like that. But anyway, I think a standalone VR headset, this would be the right time for Google to make that play. Kyle Ruggles, like the LG G5 Friends VR viewer, like that, but better. Yes. And especially not making it proprietary. When I saw an HDMI pass-through through a USB-C port on a V30 go to an Asus monitor, I absolutely flipped. That's where we need to go. I think projects like the Razer laptop phone cradle thing, that's super cool. But it only works with a Razer phone and Razer hardware. I can do the exact same thing with universal solutions and use it with any phone. That's what I think will really move the industry forward. And also, it takes all the fear out of the equation. You can invest a ton of money into Samsung and Gear VR and all that stuff, but then what happens if you leave? Then all of your accessories are now defunct. And that's not a good look. You know, they probably won't switch teams, but they want to know they can. They're not going to invest a ton of money into Samsung and then just suddenly flip and get an HTC, but they want to know they can. And the last thing I wanted to bring up is a little bit of politics news. Here, let me actually just expand this screen a little bit so that the headline. This is from the Register, and Europe plans special tax for Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon. French minister says around 2% of turnover sounds about right. And so this is an ongoing story. Whenever we see companies in how they sort of skirt current tax law, or they find loopholes through tax law, or they're dumping a ton of money into shelters in countries that are favorable to that. This is a really sticky area, because if you make the tax requirement too burdensome, I do agree with some of the conservative arguments that it will stymie innovation, it will halt investment. But right now, we see a ton of companies going to countries that have favorable tax law, like Apple in Ireland, then still not paying the taxes that those countries think they're owed, and then on top of that, still funneling money into offshore tax havens. So what we have are, at their best, it's sort of a wealth extraction machine, where that money's not really getting reinvested into products, that money's not really getting reinvested into R&D, money's definitely not getting reinvested into labor. So what do we do about that? And how do we make sure that those companies which benefit from the infrastructure in the countries they do business in are paying back into maintaining the infrastructure that they do business in? I mean, like, I know we have this sort of Ayn Randian perfect world where the markets can just decide and people can do whatever they want and they're not burdened by these terrible things called taxes. But, if you want to benefit from the United States military making sure that this country is safe and having roads and infrastructure and some type of educated labor force that you can draw from, it makes sense to me that you do kind of need to pay into that system if you benefit from that system. So what are your thoughts on Europe taking this play? Because I think it's an interesting move with how aggressive Europe has gotten very recently with these mega corporations, a Google, a Facebook, an Amazon, an Apple. These are now becoming the main portals through which people buy gadgets, interact with data and services, and they do a ton of trafficking in user data. So it's Link 57, Comrade Bernie 2020. You guys have heard me. You guys know I'm like the super crazy left-leaning bleeding heart liberal. Chad Christensen says Apple has 93% of all their cash reserves overseas because of taxes. And you're like, that's great from a business perspective, I guess, but what does that mean for the population of people that do business with Apple, the talent pool that Apple can draw from, like the infrastructure that Apple gets to benefit from? To me, that starts to sound like extortion, like, hey, taxes are too high, so we're not going to pay them anyway. But if you lower the taxes, then we'll totally pay them. But why would they pay lower taxes when they don't pay taxes at all? So that to me becomes one of those things where I think the whole market is due a correction. And Europe right now seems very aggressive on user trafficking and user data services. And the coming job apocalypse, I do very much believe that service industry is about to get wrecked over the next couple years. The driving economy is going to get wrecked over the next couple years. And then a bunch of mid-management positions. Like if you work at a bank and you are responsible for managing computer algorithms, eventually a computer algorithm will do a better job of managing itself than a human will. If you work at a brokerage firm and you're trading stocks, eventually we're really close already to those algorithms wrecking the meat bag, the human interaction with those kinds of services. This is from Rick Bearcat. Corporate taxes are not reasonable here in the U.S. Make them fair and equitable and force them back here so the money can be used for the things you mentioned. I think they got out of whack, though, because companies weren't paying them anyway. So let's say we make taxes super easy and super fair to pay, and then companies find loopholes. So then what's the outcome? How do you fix that? Well, do you raise taxes? Well, then you raise taxes and the companies still aren't paying them. It's like our government can't really respond to how quickly a corporation and especially a tech service can weasel out from what their responsibilities are to participating in that sector. And I think this administration totally caved on Apple. Apple has this sort of sweetheart status. They're an American company, but not really, because they moved their headquarters to Ireland. So why are we treating them like this magic, nice, happy American success story when they are working as hard as they can to extort a lower tax rate, and then they still probably won't pay it if they can keep funneling money into tax havens. U.S. needs to lead by example. Sadly, the current administration believes in trickle-down economics. That's from link 057. Chad Christensen, IT is going to get hit too. Less tech on-site, more cloud-based everything, information technology services. From the master, the U.S. college system is going to be even more broken. I definitely see some problems coming up there. There is always, if something catastrophic happens, there is the benefit that I think the notion of getting an education can be democratized through better broadband services. So if you live in a rural area of a state and you can finally get broadband, you can get yourself an amazing education. What we'll lose in the current college system is the idea of networking, of being an apprentice, of working in your trade or in your field before you leave the safety of an educational environment. That has already been wrecked and will continue to be further wrecked for those who are already economically disadvantaged by the current system. So they're going to get screwed. Let's see. From Mark Z, Apple should be made an example of. I don't disagree. But again, we're afraid of what companies might do. But why are we afraid of Apple still not paying taxes? You're like, pay us taxes. No. Okay, well, we're going to levy against you in an unfavorable fashion. Well, we're still not going to pay taxes. I don't get what we're afraid of with Apple. We're going to lay off tons of jobs in the United States and make our image look terrible to consumers. Sure, go for it. Any high taxes will just be offloaded onto consumers. I mean, we have ways around that, Sean. I mean, we can definitely rejoin the conversation in a way that manages those expectations, because right now, unsustainable growth in markets, providing ever increasing value to shareholders will taper off at some point. You can't have total growth all the time. Right now, we're squeezing blood out of stones, and eventually your consumer base is not going to be able to support increasing returns for shareholders. So at some point, the bottom's going to fall out anyway. If the bottom falls out with no safety net for companies or for the citizenry, well, then we're double screwed. From AW, Huawei CEO said Apple and Samsung are the reason they got banned from the U.S. I don't know, because I think ZTE also was part of that law enforcement advisory. Let's see. From Ganzi Nerd, artificial self-learning algorithms are replacing human supervision, and crappy algorithms like the YouTube's demonetization algorithm is born. Oh, I see what you're saying. Artificial self-learning algorithms are replacing human supervision, and crappy algorithms like the YouTube's demonetization algorithm, they're born. So yes, that's unfortunately what we're going to see, but companies don't care about that. I don't think they actually care about what's really effective versus what's going to save them money for a short-term game over one fiscal quarter. And so we already saw this. There is a brokerage house in New York, which not only for all of their trading, but all of their hiring practices have been turned over to some type of software algorithm. They people's like, oh, it's AI. Not really, at least not in any kind of self-aware capacity. But we already see that impacting portions of the business sector too. So for all these people that are flipping, oh, blue collar jobs, yeah, as if that's some sort of demerit on someone who would work a blue collar job, like you deserve to have your job taken away if your job can be stolen from automation. Well, white collar jobs are going to get screwed too. So we can't make this a conversation about people being not deserving enough to have some sort of support, or, what is the value of human dignity and human labor? And we need to ask these questions over the next couple years, because significant parts of our market are going to be hit tremendously hard. And at the same time, all of the benefits from that optimization and that automation are going to go to an ever receding tiny segment of the population. So again, that's entirely lopsided, and that's not a good place to be if we want some kind of society stability. Let's see. Kyle Ruggles, still don't know why you guys down in the richest country on the planet. He's in Canada. So this is a Canadian digging at the United States. Have to pay for schooling and housing and healthcare, et cetera. How is it equal opportunity when you have to pay to get ahead? From Akshay Vaishnav, what is the cost of broadband in the USA? And it varies wildly. It's expensive across the board. If you live in a rural area, you might not get a 1 megabit download. If you're in a high traffic area, like I'm in a pretty good city, and the fastest upload speed I can get is a 20 megabit upload. It's a complete and total mess, and I'm paying a lot of money for that 20 megabit upload. Let's see. In the USA, it's pay to win from Link57. From FE1538C, the richest 1% now owns half the world's wealth as of 2012. Let's see. Chad Christensen, tax loopholes keep corporations safe from the law. They just keep moving money to avoid tax issues. Well, yeah, but again, at some point the bottom falls out. So that company, again, this is what's frustrating, is from a short-term perspective, that kind of stuff is great, but from a long-term perspective, it's unsustainable. And eventually, either a market collapses, a government collapses, or a company collapses. I'd rather the company collapse. And let's see. Oh, this is from Paul on Periscope. Self-awareness isn't required for AI. Kind of not what I'm getting at is AI has become this catch-all phrase for any kind of algorithm. As soon as you start saying AI, people assume awareness. That artificial intelligence starts to mean Skynet to a lot of people, when an algorithm is just that. It's a piece of software, or just the mechanics of how you sort out a problem automatically. Like sorting algorithms. I did get to study some of that in college in the 2 semesters that I took computer science. They're amazingly adept tools for a specific function. Consumers don't seem to understand the difference between machine learning, neural processing units, dedicated hardware for machine learning, artificial intelligence, and just the algorithms that rule their daily lives. They don't understand that all of their content on Facebook has been selected for them. But if they hear, oh, AI or bots in Skype, they think self-aware Skynet style computer systems. And then let's see. From Renato Laporte, €30 for 100 megabit down, 30 megabit up. Yep, see, I'm paying significantly more than that for 20 megabit up. Andrew Wallace, we are dangerously close to the extreme rich of altered carbon, just without immortality. See, Andrew's doing this because Andrew is my co-host for the Geek Book Club, so he's bringing it back around. So you guys should go check out the Geek Book Club, where we just reviewed Altered Carbon. And tomorrow we're going to be on to talk about the Netflix show and the adaptation. And I've got some other messages here too. Well, folks, we've been streaming for about an hour, and I would say that this has been a pretty decent success. That the split didn't really seem to mess me up too bad in broadcasting to both YouTube and to Periscope. I'm gonna go back and look at the Periscope feed, just make sure it didn't get super funky. But it's kind of nice not having to go through a phone to stream to Periscope. So Restream, I definitely check it out if you guys are getting into that kind of content and live streaming and broadcasting. And I'm super excited by how well this worked, and I think this is going to be the new format for the Monday morning tech chat. is going out and broadcasting to multiple platforms all at the same time so we can have all of these conversations all at the same time. From RGB Plaza, hey man, haven't seen you in a while since the SGGQA podcast. That's my last announcement. So, as we're wrapping this up, I do have a Patreon campaign. You can check out patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. I'm going to start making graphics and stuff so that it's not just me talking. You can see stuff on the screen and maybe have a lower third and do some other cool stuff. But I am bringing back the SGGQA podcast. It's going to be a modular podcast where at least 1 week a month is going to be focused on viewer questions, tech chat, tips and tricks, problem solving, tech support, things like that. That's what the SGGQA, Some Gadget Guy Question and Answer podcast was born to do. But I also want to swap out some other components. So I'm talking to a couple of my friends. I think I'm going to start with my sister from another Mista. I'm reaching out to Flo Ion and to Erica Griffin about just coming on and having a long-form conversation. How did you get into tech reviewing? What's your philosophy? What do you like about the current state of the industry? What do you think needs to be improved? And having really long-form discussions, not just about a gadget, but then also just about like where we're at right now with tech and lifestyle. Then the third component are going to be interviews with people who are way more qualified than I am to discuss certain topics. So if they're politics, I'm reaching out to 2 different politicians to talk about loot boxes in gaming and net neutrality, especially with some of the recent moves. Like AT&T just snuck in sponsored data again. If you remember, when we were right before signing net neutrality into law, this was a really big deal where AT&T looks like they're making this really consumer magnanimous gesture. But it's only going to raise costs for the services that we interact with because they can sponsor that data through AT&T. But then where do you think those costs are going to go? Those costs are eventually going to get rolled into the plans that we pay for. So this is, in the long run, a terrible situation. But it's back. It's back because, you know, net neutrality's gone and the FCC wouldn't do anything to stop AT&T from making this move anyway. The FCC isn't trying to get involved with Verizon relocking their cell phones. Do you own your phone? Do you want to be able to repair it? Do you want to get support for it? Do you want to be able to update the software? Do you want to take it to another carrier if you decide to stop doing business with Verizon? Well, you can't because Verizon's going to start locking their devices again. So those types of things, I want to have proper guests on to chat about those. And so one of the first that I've got coming up is one of the top audiologists in the United States, Dr. Grimes. She works through UCLA. And the end of the month, on the 26th, she's going to join me on the revived SGGQA podcast to talk about hearing loss from mobile devices. We're I think into our second generation of raising deaf kids from poor headphone implementation through, you know, constant streaming, never taking a break, having devices that can stream days worth of music for hours at a time. And so she's going to help me sort of untangle some of what's happening right now for ear health. We just recently did the debate on the headphone jack being eliminated from products, but there's still a lot we can talk about in terms of high quality audio and making sure that you're sort of taking care of yourself. Newegg Now, we just did an episode talking about ergonomics, you know, how to get the best fit for your keyboard, for your mouse, for, you know, getting a nice chair so that you can sit for long periods of time, and how to shift up your usage so that you're not hurting yourself through some sort of repetitive stress injury or carpal tunnel or something like that. And that also goes for your hearing. Is how are you taking breaks? What type of headphones are you using? Do you have a good seal? Are you utilizing passive or active noise reduction technologies? And so she's going to help me chat through all of that. I'm really excited about that. Those types of conversations I get way more excited about than just, oh, the new phone has a slightly faster processor and a slightly nicer camera because DxO said so. Meh. So if you want the full scoop on what's going on right there, a lot of that stuff is going to be pumped through my Patreon campaign first. I'm still working out the last couple steps for reviving the podcast and making it public, and then also having a special feed for patrons. You know, even just supporting it $1 a month, make sure that I can produce really cool content that's all around tech and politics and lifestyle and gaming and mobile and DIY and production. If you want to learn how to up the quality of your production, I'm learning about all this stuff right now, so I can share everything that I'm learning with you guys too. So, thank you so much. You guys know where to find me around the web as at SomeGadgetGuy, patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy, youtube.com/WanBagnell, but you can just search for SomeGadgetGuy. And this is the end of the Monday Morning Tech Chat, and I will catch you all next week on another broadcast. Thanks so much for the live chat. You all rock.